Welcome to this week's Rider Support.
This week, we're going to talk about the key stages you need to tune into in this year's Vuelta a España. We're going to talk about how you should choose the perfect aero helmet for time trialing. But first, one of the craziest stories I've heard in a long time. Undercover anti-doping agents on cycling teams. Did I say that right? It's wild. Sarah.
Anthony, yeah, it's a very salacious story and a lot of listeners have written in about it. Hey, Sarah and Anthony, I read this week that USADA were actually using undercover athletes to try catch dopers within teams. This sounds like something out of a spy movie. What do you think of this?
Like, the backdrop to it is there's been this debate going on. It's more than a debate. There's hostility going on between USADA, which is the governing body for regulating doping in American sports, and the World Anti-Doping Agency, which is the broader company that regulates world anti-doping, and they're the creators of the World Anti-Doping Code.
Yeah, it feels like the US have gone a bit rogue here.
Yeah, but because there's then the individual federations, like the Chinese one are in on this as well. And so the USADA was criticising WADA for its treatment of Chinese athletes, because I think there was like 24 Chinese athletes who were allowed to compete in the Olympics, but they had a batch contamination problem with all their tests, so they may or may not have had doping infractions. And so USADA was saying that's unfair. And I think WADA came back with kind of a rebuttal to USADA, saying like, look, your house isn't exactly in order, and outed them on this use of informants in anti-doping cases in the US, which is absolutely wild.
It's bonkers. It's completely bonkers. It's like something out of a cheap paperback.
So there's a number of problems with this. So on the surface, you can kind of go, well, it obviously seems unfair, but maybe there's a greater good. It seems unfair to allow somebody who has tested positive and is doping to continue in sport, to out other people who are doping. USADA have obviously looked at this and said there's a common good, but I took a little bit of time to kind of unpack this because it is quite a complex issue. So some of the problems in are, so if you allow athletes who've committed an anti-doping violation to continue competing in exchange for information, well, like, as a public viewer, this undermines the whole principle of fairness and equality in the sport. Can we trust the results we see on the screen in front of us, be those bike races, running races, whatever, because there's sleeper agents in there who have committed offences. So the whole trust goes in that. WADA criticised USADA for allegedly allowing athletes to compete without prior notification to WADA and without clear provisions in the rules for such practices. So there's no provision for actually doing this. So USADA have gone totally rogue. It's not like this is laid out in the World Anti-Doping Code, which is the code that governs all this, that says, hey, here's one of the ways that if an athlete comes to you and says they've doped, you may reduce their sentence or totally, waive their sentence if they're willing to go rogue, wear a wire, go back into their team and implicate other people. They just made all that up.
But my understanding of it is, and I know a document can cover absolutely every angle, and you would assume that people use their common sense. But what I read in Reuters, who covered this a few days ago as well, the USADA said that there's actually no specific wording that says athletes who have broken anti-doping rules can continue to compete without first being prosecuted and sanctioned. So feel like they've kind of found a very legal loophole to use these athletes to go back in and essentially snitch.
And so if those athletes go in continuing to use performance enhancing drugs and then they unfairly win competitions, they're depriving clean athletes of a chance to win, titles, trophies, contracts, recognition. It totally undermines it. It's like, it's crazy. And for me, it's that lack of that regulatory framework that it's operating in is one of the biggest problems. But the perception that some athletes might be receiving preferential treatment is a huge one as well. Without getting too nerdy and starting to put my law hat on, this is a huge problem in informants in criminal cases. That is, somebody has broken the law and now they're getting unfair or preferential treatment for breaking the law. It's almost incentivizing law breaking. And that can start to erode at the very fabric of justice, and in this case, erode at the very fabric of clean and fair sport. Number of real problems with it. I hate the idea of it. It's totally bananas. It's totally lost sight of what we're trying to do here, have clean playing field. You can't just waive a period and say, okay, don't worry about the next 3 years. We're going to have totally illegitimate winners because we have informants in here competing on performance enhancing drugs, and justify that by saying, oh, it'll be good in the long term. What good's the long term now for, somebody who's dedicated their life to this period?
I agree. Now, just to clarify that this was happening from 2011 through to 2014. So it's not actually happening as we speak at the moment.
That we know of. Exactly. That's the kind of the scary part about it. This guy Taggart, he's basically driving USADA, and he's Armstrong's nemesis.
Exactly. So he is obviously really dialed in and wants to get dopers. I mean, he's driving the agency's very, very hardcore chasing, and he believes that it's okay to use this type of tactic.
That's just someone who's so indoctrinated in what they're doing. They can't see the wood from the trees. Like, zoom out and go, what are we trying to do? We're trying to have a fair, even playing field for athletes to compete in. That's what you're trying to do. And by putting informants back into it, sure, he's totally subverting the whole mission that his agency set up to go after. Like, it's bizarre.
I agree. I think he's just become a zealot now, and using actions like this is completely crazy.
He's a bit of a lunatic. I'd like to have him on the podcast. A bit of a lunatic, though, from the clips I've seen from him.
But yeah, what a wild story from between USADA and WADA over the last couple of weeks. I think we'll watch it kind of unfold even a little bit further. I would say more and more will come out, especially because Reuters seem to have gotten their teeth into this story, and they do amazing investigative journalism. So we might even hear more about this. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Hey, Sarah and Anthony, I loved your Tour de France live podcast. Are you doing something similar for La Vuelta? And what are the top 4 or 5 stages to definitely not miss this year? And while I'm at it, who do you think the GC podium will be? Anthony, are we going to do
We are doing a live Vuelta podcast. What a commitment. 3 weeks every day. And I know you're going off to do, Sarah's gone Billy Big Time, and she's gone off doing announcing at Roadman, which is our female Tour of Ireland, which is on for the last few days of Vuelta. But by and large, we'll figure something out. Either I'll do it solo or we'll have a guest in for that. But yeah, we're going to do the Vuelta for 3 weeks live every single day. I'm stoked for it because, like, looking at the podium contenders, like, you would say Roglic, who specialises in the Vuelta, is the standout favourite for the Vuelta. Yeah. But I also really like the look of Landa coming out of Tour de France, who rode brilliantly for Remco, probably secured him that podium. Best Landa we've seen in years, and I know Sarah's a part of that Landissimo fan club now.
Love Landa.
Almeida. Again.
I love João Almeida. He's one of my favourite riders. It's his time to shine as well and really go for a win on his own. And
then we've Jay Vine back, who won a TT in Vuelta Burgos last week after a very injury-hit season. You know, multiple stage winner at Vuelta España.
Jay Vine was in that really bad crash that Jonas Vingegaard was in. He was kind of caught up in that whole thing, and he was in intensive care. It was very, very scary for Jay as well. So it'll be brilliant. It's brilliant to see him back up and on the bike.
Roadman, I know how serious you take your goal setting, whether they're fitness or life-related goals. If you're looking for a powerful ally to support you on this journey, look no further than HUEL. HUEL has become my secret weapon for when I don't have time to prepare a balanced meal. It ensures I get the nutrition I need without sacrificing time or taste. Plus, it stops me from reaching for that takeaway menu. I always throw a bottle into my backpack when I'm heading into the city to work, and it stops me eating junk convenience foods, snacking on croissants and bars of chocolate, because I know they don't support my training goals. It's a handy, nutritious meal on the go, and it's got over 22 grams of protein. HUEL is perfect for athletes that don't have time to cook or prepare food before a training session. It's convenient, nutritious fuel at your fingertips, ensuring you hit your daily fueling needs for that session. HUEL Ready to Drink has 26 essential vitamins and minerals in every single bottle. You're getting a whopping 175 health benefits. Plus, it's made from natural ingredients like tapioca, sunflower seed, coconut, and more. The best part, it's the flavours. There's 8 crazy, beautiful flavours. Iced coffee is what's in my backpack right at the moment. You can get HUEL directly to your home. All you got to do is head on over to the HUEL website, huel.com/Roadman. Eddie Dunbar?
Yeah.
Really bad luck in the Giro this year, and someone I'd love to see. Well, Ineos are obviously in crisis, but still maybe Time and Aaronsman can pull something out. Ciccone, I like him a little bit more after him confronting Buitrago about the sticky bottle in the Tour de France. Who knows what sort of legs he has left, because he raced pretty hard. I think he rolled the top 10 in the Tour de France, or just outside it, maybe lost in the TT.
I think he might have lost. I can't remember. I think he was just outside. Yeah, you know what? I never really liked Ciccone. I watched him race a few times, and I just always thought the guy had such a bad attitude.
He's Italian, isn't he?
He's Italian. He's always really making these big, gesticulating. How does it? There you go. Thank you. And he's just like so extra and always seemed to be giving out about something. But yeah, I have to say he redeemed himself a little bit in my eyes when he during the Tour de France there. What are the key stages, Anthony? I'll tell you mine first. Right, stage 9. I think the climbing doesn't start until stage 9 in Vuelta this year, and where the stage is close to my heart. It's Motril to Granada, which is an area of the world I absolutely fell in love with a couple of years ago. It's 178 kilometers, 3 Cat 1 climbs. And the thing about Granada and Sierra Nevada kind of mountain range is that it's so incredibly hot, and that's going to be a huge factor.
Altitude.
It's altitude as well. They will expect it to be in the mid 40s during for this stage. So that's they're kicking off with the mountain climb on stage 9. So I definitely wouldn't miss that. And the next one is stage 20. That's going to be Saturday, September the 7th. And that's Villa Creon to Picon Blanco. It's 171 kilometres. It's the last mountain stage of the Vuelta. And there's 7 classified ascents. That's going to total roughly around 5,000 metres of vertical climbings on that day, which is crazy. And because it's the second last day, it's really going to affect the time trial on stage 21 as well. So for me, it's going to be stage 9 and stage 20.
Yeah, and I remember Rain Tarame won on that finishing climb back last time they were there. That's probably the Queen stage if you're to look at it. But another couple to pick out. Obviously, you mentioned the time trial, stage 22. I think that's a brilliant one. Stage 21, that's a brilliant one to look out for. That's Sunday, the 8th of September. It's Madrid to Madrid, 22 kilometre time trial, almost totally pan flat through the streets of Madrid. Hopefully it's not in the middle of the night like we seen last time they had a time trial in the streets of Madrid where it was a team time trial and you couldn't see what was going on. Another one to look for is stage 15, and that is the 1st of September in Fiesto to Situ Negru, and that's 142 kilometres. It has 2 Cat 1 climbs and a horse category climb on it. The horse category climb hasn't been used in the Vuelta for the past 12 years, but it has pitches up over 24% in it. So it's a wall of a yoke, similar to what we seen in San Sebastian last weekend.
And those pitches aren't just, for a couple of metres. They go on for hundreds of metres. Yeah. This is a really, really tough climb. So,
I remember seeing Joaquim Rodriguez on that a few years back, and real climb for Perito. So look, who knows, Roglic goes up them super steep things well, and a lot of those really featherweight GC guys do. But Vuelta's always so hard. Like compared to the Tour de France, it's so hard. They just have so many mountaintop finishes in the Vuelta every year. So I'm looking forward to covering that every day because it's non-stop drama.
Yeah, so there's 9 mountain stage finishes over the 21 stages. That's a lot.
And the heat is bonkers.
Crazy. Yeah. Okay, can't wait. But yeah, tune in for our daily podcast on that. Okay, next question. Hey, Roadmen. I've been following the Tour de France Femme and I've loved every minute of the past week of racing. I've noticed that every day after the race, Cycling News publishes the names of riders and teams that get fines. Can you explain the fines to me and the penalties? So this is actually something I always keep a really close eye on. I always check this article that's published every day about the previous day and the fines. I just find it
cheating.
I'm just kind of a little bit nosy about what everyone's getting in trouble over and why. So A couple of days ago, I did notice that Lizzie Diglin, who we absolutely love, we follow her career very closely, and another rider who we absolutely love, Maggie Coles-Lister, who had an amazing Olympic Games. She's a Canadian rider. She rides for Roland. So they got fined for sheltering behind a vehicle. Now, it's a pretty low key fine. A lot of the teams will get that. They get fined 100 Swiss francs, which is basically the equivalent to €100, and they get 10 points taken off their UCI rankings, and then they'll get a 20-second time penalty. So that's one that you're going to see a lot.
That's pretty harsh. I didn't realise you got a 20-second time penalty as well.
Yeah, it's pretty harsh, isn't it? Other ones that you'll see is basically discarding waste outside of the waste zones, and that's a 250 Swiss franc fine. This is something that's pretty new, isn't it, Anthony? I mean, when did the waste
zones are only a couple of years old?
Yeah, a couple of years old. So there's only a certain area that you can actually throw your bidons and your gel wrappers, all of your rubbish out of your pockets, and if you're caught putting it out anywhere else, it is a pretty high fine. The next one is, and I always find it kind of interesting, is unseemly behaviour. One of the Lotto Destiny women got a fine for this, 100 Swiss fine.
But these are all yesterday, these fines?
These were all, earlier on in the week. Yeah. And then, of course, you will see them in the men's one. You will see the sprinters getting fines for deviating from their chosen lane, impeding or endangering another rider, and irregular sprint. We saw Jasper Philipsen getting a couple of those. That's a 500 Swiss franc fine and a 13 points deduction in their points classification, which is quite serious on the team because, as we know, every couple of years the relegation positioning.
No, that's their points classification in the internal sprint competition.
Well, okay, but there are also UCI points.
Yeah, the first one you talk about, Lizzie Diglin, seems to be a 5-point UCI ranking deduction, but the Jasper Philipsen
wasn't.
One, that's just in your points classification.
Okay, so the next one that I found from the Tour de France, Kevin Vaculin, he's with Arkea B&B. Yeah, he got fined 500 Swiss francs. 20 UCI ranking points were taken away from the team, and that was for assault, intimidation, insults, threats, incorrect behaviour, or behaviour that is indecent or endangers others. So there's loads that fall into this fine realm.
There's loads. I know you've listed a good few here, but this is not an exhaustive list. The list is...
It's huge.
Massive.
And it's not just the riders. It's the soigneurs, it's the people in the team car, the mechanics. It's absolutely everybody to do with the team. Now, what is actually changing in 2025 is because teams were just taking the fines, particularly the financial fines, they were just taking them on the chin and being like, okay, it's kind of part of what happens in a race. So from 2025 onwards, they're bringing in a yellow, red card.
That's been trialled this year in the FEM.
In the FEM, yeah, it's happening right now. So basically, it's just kind of trying to encourage people to have better behaviour and not just swallow the fines. So,
because the problem with that is, because Adam Hansen talked about this, the CPA president, some of the fines don't punish the principal offender. So if you take Mathieu van der Poel, that's a classic example. It don't happen in this year's Tour de France, but last year's Tour de France. But there's probably loads of other examples that happened in this year's Tour de France. Van der Poel got a fine for deviation from his line, and his deviation from the line was, obviously Van der Poel's not sprinting, he's leading out Philipsen. So Van der Poel sprints, then deviates to block off the opponents, and now the opponents can't sprint to contest against Philipsen. Van der Poel gets a 20-point deduction or a 12-point deduction, which he doesn't care about. The team have won the stage. So it's not punishing the principal offender. The principal offender there is Philipsen. Van der Poel is, a proxy for Philipsen. Yeah. And so I think that's what the yellow-red card system is to try to defeat.
Yeah, absolutely. And so basically, if you get a yellow card, that's, again, to discourage repeat offenders. And then 2 or more infractions will lead to riders being ejected from the race and suspended for a week. 3 gets a 2-week ban from racing. And if riders get 6 in a year, they can be suspended for 30 days. So that's harsh, isn't it? So if you're getting 3 over the space of a couple of races, that's really going to affect your race calendar. So it's quite interesting. Do you agree with the kind of new yellow card thing?
I have to see it play now.
How to see it play now. Okay. Okay, next question. Hi, Anthony. Can you settle an argument for me with a club mate, please? He eats nuts, beef jerky, boiled eggs. Yes, I said boiled eggs while we're out training. I've been trying to tell him that sugar is your friend when you're on the bike. I've sent him articles on the science behind it, but he ignores all this information and says that sugar is simply bad for you. I know he is an avid listener to the podcast, so can you please convince him that he will perform better using sugar on the bike? Simon, and my friend's name is Paul.
Roadman, whether you're a weekend warrior or a world tour rider, the right tools can make all the difference. Enter 4i's Precision 3 Plus Power Meter, the latest innovation from 4i, designed to help you reach peak performance. The Precision 3 Plus Power Meter is a compact yet powerful unit. It weighs just 9 grams and it's packed with features that set it apart, including integration with Apple's Find My network, giving you the peace of mind by letting you track your power meter wherever it is. Plus, you've got up to 800 hours of battery life. We all know that accuracy is key, and 4i's delivers a groundbreaking plus or minus 1% accuracy thanks to their unique 3D strain gauge technology. For those seeking even more data, the Precision 3 Plus Pro Power Meter offers dual-sided power meter metrics, giving you detailed insights into pedaling efficiency, torque effectiveness, and left-right balance. 4i's offers versatile product options to suit your needs. Choose from ride-ready power meters with pre-installed units on Shimano cranks, or up for factory-installed power meter, where you send in your crankset for a custom installation. Ready to elevate your cycling game? Trust 4i's Precision 3 Plus Power Meter. Precision, performance, and peace of mind all in one. Learn more by visiting 4iiii.com. That's 4iiii.com. I'm going to put that in the description down below. I think you need to look at the intensity that the ride is being performed at. If you're out on a long ride or an intense ride, I would say anything above zone 1, your body primarily relies on glycogen to fuel that. And that's a stored form of carbohydrate as its main fuel source. Glycogen is stored in your muscles and glycogen is stored in your liver. But the catch is glycogen supplies are limited. Our body has on average about 90 minutes of glycogen stored in the body. After that, we run out of glycogen. So we need to start supplementing that glycogen store, and how we can do that is taking on more simple carbohydrates. When we run out of glycogen, we call it the knock, the bonk, that dreaded feeling of hitting the wall where your energy plummets and your legs are just gone. We've all had that feeling. It's like energy seems to be only going to essential parts, like to keep my eyesight on and to keep my hearing on, but there's no energy going to my legs.
I don't even know if I have eyesight, or thinking goes completely out the window, core temperature, everything just seems to become very bleak.
So you need to be thinking about taking on sugar in the form of simple carbohydrates like glucose and fructose. That's what you're seeing a lot of the sports gels made up as, because they're rapidly absorbed into your bloodstream and they're used almost immediately in the bloodstream. And that quick energy boost, it's going to help spare that muscle glycogen that you do have in your legs as well. So you don't have to wait until you're totally out of fuel to start fueling. You can start fueling straight away and it'll spare that muscle glycogen. Almost every study will back up that you perform better with carbohydrates than a ketogenic diet. I've never seen, anecdotally, you'll hear people saying, oh, I know I perform brilliant eating beef jerky and eggs, but like, it's nonsense. It's just not backed up in the research.
Imagine how well you perform if you actually took some simple sugars in. You know, when people, there was one of the guys that used to come out on the ride, he used to bring croissants and brioche and stuff on the ride with him, which is quite heavy on fat and carbs. But I had heard that, you know, having this mix of fat and carbs, actually the fat part inhibits the uptake of the carbs and the sugar.
I don't think fat doesn't directly inhibit the absorption of carbohydrates. What it does is fat can delay the process of glycogen replenishment because you have a slower digestion rate. So when you're out and you're training hard or you're training long, your body is going to rely primarily on glycogen as a store of energy. if your carbohydrate absorption is delayed, you mightn't get the quick energy boost you need, especially if you're doing high intensity stuff. But I think it's also important to say it's not just about performance, eating carbohydrates. Carbohydrates have been shown to delay that feeling of fatigue as well, and also help with recovery afterwards. So allowing you to go hard again the next day. So if you're not eating carbohydrates on the bike, you're on an absolute hiding to nothing. I'd say I had 50 cans of Coke when I was bike packing for the last 2 weeks.
Absolutely disgusting. Okay, Paul, you heard it here from Anthony. You heard it straight from the horse's mouth. You need to get a few Haribo into you. Next question. Hi, Anthony. I followed your recent bike packing trip on Instagram. I'd love to trace your ride next year. It would be a big, big goal for me. What were the highlights, lowlights, and any advice? And that's from Stan.
Yeah, I don't know if I would trace my route. Like, there's a Irish lad, Simon Jones. We'll try and find his Instagram and hook it up below. And Simon's riding around the world. So we do an annual trip, me and a couple of my friends. We call it the Chamois Time Tour because we're in our chamois literally from the moment we wake up till the moment we go to bed. It's like 12 hours a day in the chamois, and it's our third year doing it. But I was chatting to Simon Jones the other day, and we're going to bring him in as a Chamois Time correspondent for the fourth version. As kind of a, an outpost rider to recce the roads and show us where to go and where not to, because he looked at my Strava and he said we're in the Slovenian capital Ljubljana, that we were literally 100 meters from the greatest crepe shop in the world, and we didn't go down that street, and so we missed all these amazing spots. But we started out and we flew into Bari and we rode to Brindisi. Rode down to Brindisi day one with a huge tailwind. Disgusting ride, rubbish all over the roads, potholes all the way down. Wouldn't advise that ride. Got probably the worst travel experience I've ever had. A ferry from Brindisi across to Vlora. Brindisi is a beautiful city, actually, across to Vlora.
In Albania.
Overnight ferry. And then I loved Albania. Absolutely amazing. Albania was like getting transported back to Ireland in the 1960s or something. Like, you go into a restaurant and the chef has like a fag hanging out his mouth as he's making your sandwich, and cars beep at you, but then they pull in up the road to wave at you, and it's just such a cool place, and everyone's driving like a 1970s Mercedes with black smoke coming out the exhaust of it. That was a cool place. Croatia and Montenegro just seemed like traffic jams. They were, Croatia was beautiful. Dubrovnik's like everyone's seen it from Game of Thrones. Beautiful, but honestly not really my jam. It's too touristy, packed with people, and just traffic. We were total bike packing Freds though, because we started in Vlora and rode basically north through Albania, Bosnia, Croatia, Montenegro, Slovenia, and back into Italy. Like, if we had spent 40 seconds researching this trip, that was a headwind the entire way. Like, the way to do it is to start the other way and you have a block tailwind for the entire thing. Slovenia was a massive highlight. We have to go back to Slovenia. I've talked about it soon.
Anthony sent me a text message saying, pack up the dogs, we're moving to Slovenia.
Slovenia is amazing. The mountains, the people, the roads, the bike paths. It's such a beautiful place. I'd love to do a Roadman camp in Slovenia. Maybe we should look into that. There's no direct flights, I don't think, there though, from Dublin, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. Bosnia is wild, like wild. We got arrested for illegal crossing of the border from Bosnia to Croatia as well, which probably would qualify as a low light, but they were quite friendly police officers, but still not friendly enough that they didn't fine us €170. I probably wouldn't trace my exact route. Definitely do it in reverse if you're going to do it, because at least you have the benefit of tailwind and just a little bit more time preparing the route, so you're getting to pick off those scenic locations where we were trying to hit big average speeds every day because we had a lot of ground to cover. We had to cover, I think, roughly 150 kilometers a day to get our flight out. So
that was what I kept saying to Anthony. And look, Stan, you are going to plan your own trip in your own way. And you know how much time you have to do it. But for me, a bike packing trip of that length with that amount of climbing would be done a little bit different. I certainly would have to have a down day here and there. Now, I know you guys just rolled on.
Well, we had one transfer day.
Yeah, but a transfer day in a bus is not like chill for me either. But I think that, it's just what you want to do. Do you want to have a couple of down days and maybe factor that in, because you guys are hitting it hardcore. Like you and the two guys that you went with are serious cyclists, and it's, that's not for everybody.
And stop. I would struggle to do 200k on a Monday and then take a day off on Tuesday and do 200k on the Wednesday. my body just doesn't work that well with those start and stop rhythms. I found it easier to do a 200k day and then a 150k day and a 110k day and a 200k day, and kind of keep it, you know, at least some bit of movement.
Yeah. What I will say as well, Stan, is when I picked the three lads up from the airport, they had this wild, vacant kind of ravenous stare on their face. I don't think nutrition was, you were able to keep really on top of like absolute perfect nutrition as well. So that's something also to be, you know, kind of, you know, thoughtful of.
And actually, before you move on to your next question, a massive shout out to Aer Lingus for opening up my bike box, throwing my shit out all over the place. Lost my sunglasses, one pedal, all my headset spacers. So Dublin Airport and Aer Lingus. Shambles.
Bad books. They're in the bad books. Okay, next question. Anthony, I'm looking to buy an aero helmet. What should I focus on when I'm picking it? I won't ever get into a wind tunnel. Any tips on what really matters and what's just marketing hype? Is any type of aero helmet better than none? As in, even if the shape isn't perfect for me, I guess it will still give me more aero gains? Kev.
We are so excited to announce that we are partnering with Whoop. Whoop are changing the game when it comes to wearable technology and health monitoring. Whoop is a wearable health and fitness coach that provides you with feedback and actionable insights into your sleep, your recovery, your training, your stress, and your overall health. Sarah and I have been using Whoop for years, and we love the insights it provides into our body's inner workings. It really gives us a look under the hood. And you're going to see Mathieu van der Poel, Richard Carapaz, and other elite level cyclists wearing Whoop, but it isn't just for those superstars. All the data is personalised to your unique physiology and fitness levels. If you're interested in taking control of your health and your fitness so that you can excel in all aspects of your life, you have to go and check out Whoop. Go to the URL now, which is join.whoop.com/Roadman. I'm going to pop that in the description below, and you're going to get a free month's access to Whoop membership on me. I promise you won't regret it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think any type of aero helmet is better than zero. I think that's going to be a huge gain going from not having an aero helmet to having an aero helmet. I think the purpose of an aero helmet is to reduce drag, to helping you slice through the wind a little bit more efficiently. So if you can't test your aero helmet yourself, I would look for helmets that have been tested in the wind tunnel, that have documented data showing drag reduction from various different yaw angles. That's just the angle the wind hits you at. That's going to be a really good starting point. A slightly better starting point would be if you can do some sort of home testing on it. Like, I've just got a time trial bike and I'm going to do a big time trial project over the next 12 months and see can I win national, masters title inside a 12-month period. So I'm going to be playing around with helmets quite a lot. Like back in the day when I used to time trial, I didn't have money as a student to go to the wind tunnel, but I borrowed as many different friends' helmets, aero helmets as I could, got into my aero position, and I found a local hill and I put on helmet A, rolled down the hill, marked it in chalk, went back up the hill, back into the same position with helmet B, rolled down the hill, marked it in chalk, and I literally seen which one I went further from. It's a very basic test to see which helmet's a little bit faster. Also, when I had David Miller, we done a time trial series a few years ago, and one of his things was, if it looks fast, it is fast. If you can get videos side on, photos front on, and have as much media as you can on your helmet choices and have helmet A, B, C, D, that's probably a matter of throwing it into your club WhatsApp group and saying, hey guys, can I borrow everyone's aero helmet and test out all those before you do it. I have an interesting guest coming up. Haven't confirmed the date for it yet, but there's a product called Ghibli. I might have butchered it. We'll try and find a link and put it below. And Ghibli is a home aerodynamic sensor. So that's going to test your real-time coefficient of frontal drag, how aerodynamic you are. And relative to the wind tunnel, it's quite affordable. I think a wind tunnel is roughly €1,000 an hour. So it's pretty much out of reach for everyone. I think Ghibli's around €1,000, I think, but you could buy it between the club, something like that. Now, I haven't used it, so I don't know how good it is. My plan is to try get the founder of Ghibli on the podcast and baseline my aero position and then get some testing done with that and then talk about the effect of it. So yeah, stay tuned for that one.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Anthony has a new love of his life here, a new TT bike, and it was here waiting for you when you got back from your trip. There's been a lot of tinkering around on it. It's been kind of interesting. We've been playing around, trying to fit this on, trying to take this off. It's really cool. Anthony made me get onto it yesterday after we finished our training spin, and I have to say it was one of the most terrifying experiences of my
It's like driving a
life.
Formula One car.
It just wants to go. It feels very strange. It feels very dangerous. Yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted whatsoever. Because when Anthony bought this bike, he was like, "Oh, you're the same bike size as me. So you can probably get it stuck into a few TTs as well." I was like, "Yeah, maybe." After riding it around the car park for about 5 minutes, I don't think it's for me at all.
I think it's going to be a 12-month project. You're going to hear Laura's more on the podcast. I'm going to talk to aerodynamic experts and figure out, to go from my very poor baseline at the moment of having not ridden a TT bike in the last 10 years to figuring out how you can optimize it on a budget, optimize it using home testing, all this type of stuff is going to be an interesting little project, which I'm sure we'll talk loads more about in the coming months.
Can't wait.
Roadman, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Rider Support. I've loved this conversation and hopefully you've enjoyed it too. And if you have, there's another video up here which I know you're going to absolutely love. And please click down here because, as mentioned, we're coming live every single day for the Vuelta a España. So if you click down here and you turn on the notifications icon, you'll be notified as soon as we go live. See you then.